Should we increase minimum wage,
Well, I
or
think
is this back to the same thing about, well, the market needs to
point about
decide?
whether it's, well, of course, as Doug will know, I'll always say I'm pro-market solutions on every one of these ideas. But the biggest thing that a lot of people...
means no.
Yes, which means no. But basically that what people forget is the minimum wage effectively is a tax. It's just the question of who pays for it. So if you wanted to help people out, one thing you could do is you could subsidize low-income workers. That's where the government actually provides the money. But they're still going to tax someone to give them the money. Or you can ask the employer to go ahead and do this, in which case you're taxing that particular employer. What'll happen is the research is almost clear. It's not like that one. It's almost clear that if you increase the minimum wage, you are going to reduce job creation among the worst group of people, the people that you really want to come into the labor force, get the labor training, get the skills of having a job, get used to performing in that environment, and then moving up. Because very, very few people actually start at the minimum wage and stay there.
I'm with the Pope on this.
Okay.
I believe in a
Please.
just wage. I think it ought to keep up with inflation. And I don't think the evidence is so clear, unlike what a lot of economics textbooks say, that minimum wage is so punishing to the job market. I mean, it creates demand. We've got to deal with this distribution of income problem in this country, if not throughout the world. And that's what I mean by agree with the Pope.
Okay, I know this is going to be hard for you to do. Yes or no? Minimum wage. Yes
I
or
can't.
no?
I got a great story to tell you about minimum wage.
Knew it.
Okay, when I was a teenager, my boss came in and said, "John, I'm giving you a raise to $1.25 from $1.15 an hour." Lo and behold, I had no idea that the minimum wage
I got
had
that
risen.
too, by the way.
Yeah, had risen from $1.15 to $1.25. But it made me think, and that is, okay, this is back in the early '60s. Made me think, well, what would $1.25 back in those days be today? Be over $9. So when we think about that, we've been sitting with this minimum wage over the years, and recently it has actually slipped back. Now, I'm with Frank on this. I'm a free market kind of guy, but the reality is, ingrained in our culture is a minimum wage. It hasn't been keeping pace with inflation. The $1.25 minimum wage in 1963 is now a $9.35 minimum wage today. And we're $2 behind that roughly. So I've got kind of mixed feelings on this. And Doug's right. The literature is really uncertain. Now, you can read studies that will suggest it has no effect. One thing we do know is it has little effect in the short run. The literature only suggests that in the long run it has some effect.